Hi, I'm Kimberly. Welcome back to the Success Series Talks. Talks designed to help you get what you want out of life. Remember to listen, take notes, and most importantly, act. So today I thought I would do something a little different and talk about some teachers that I've had in my life, in my past, that have influenced me the most, and why they had such great influence on me. And there's various different reasons why they did. They had different characteristics, different personalities. They taught different subjects. Some of them were even subjects I didn't like, but they taught them anyway. And so it wasn't any one thing that they had. They displayed different things that made them successful. All these teachers have been very successful teachers and have had a lot of students they've influenced and helped over the years, and a lot of people who love them. And so I thought that I'd talk about that, and maybe it'll help someone out there. So the first one I want to talk about is actually my 6th grade teacher, and she actually ended up being my 5th and 6th grade teacher because they did a team teaching thing, and so we went one place for one teacher, taught math and science, and the other one taught English and history and writing and all that stuff. So Dinah Smith was my teacher, and she taught the English and writing and reading and history part, which tended to be more up my alley anyway. I tended to be a little more on the creative side, and so it was good that I was in her class. And she's a super creative and fun person, and she's always happy. When she smiles, her entire face lights up. Her eyes smile. She can wear a face mask for COVID-19, and you can still tell that she's smiling because that's just the kind of person she is. And she doesn't just smile, she lifts everybody up that she meets. Something I just felt when I was in her class, and ever since, she's the kind of person who's always thinking of others. But something that I really wanted to focus on is that she makes everyone feel like they are genuinely cared about. When she talks to you, she gives you her full attention. It's not all over the place somewhere else. And when you talk to her, you can tell that she's paying attention to you. She responds and she interacts with you. And she acts enthusiastic about what you're saying. She acts interested in things that I'm sure she can't be interested in. Maybe she's interested in every single thing we ever wanted to tell her. But I mean, surely she has some things she thinks are boring, but she acts like she's the most interested person when you talk to her. And it's not just me. I'm positive you could ask anybody and they would feel the same way. She makes you feel like you are important, like you are the most important thing she could possibly be doing at that moment. That is a talent. That is a gift that more people should have, but definitely do not. And it's one of those things that if you were to try to acquire a piece of that, it would have such a huge influence on your life and the life of others. And so, this is one teacher that just made a huge difference on me. It came at a time when, I didn't have as much self-confidence, and she made me feel like I was actually someone worth getting to know. Like I actually had a purpose and I was all right. And so she was important in my development at a point when I needed a teacher like her. And so I'm super grateful for her. My second one is a man by the name of Craig Pearson. I met Mr. Pearson when I got to 7th grade. Mr. Pearson is one of those people who has a big, loud, booming voice, and he was big. He was intimidating, and he could scare the living daylights out of you. And I learned through years of being in his class. I took many classes, from even classes I didn't have to take. Through years of being in his class, that he is a big teddy bear. He seemed like, he was prickly on the outside, but when you get to know him, my goodness, there's not very many people I know who care more about other people than Mr. Pearson did. And I'd like to share a little experience I once had, and I don't remember if I was in 7th or 8th grade, and it doesn't really matter, but one or the other of those 2 grades, I was having some problems at the time with some other kids in school, and I was greatly lacking in confidence of any kind. And one day, another girl who was trying to help me, and it had been a really bad day that day, and she wasn't one of my circle of friends groups, but she was a really great person, and she passed me a note in class, and it just talked about how I shouldn't let what everyone else was saying bother me, and how it was okay, and she liked this about me, and blah blah blah. And so somehow that fell into his hands, and after class that day, I remember he talked to me and he said, that I needed to stop worrying about what everyone else thought of me, that I was a person that was worth getting to know, and I didn't need to worry about those who didn't think that there would be enough people in this world who would think that, and he just let me know that I was a great person and that I should be happy being me, and that it didn't matter that I wasn't somebody else, or that someone else didn't like me, or someone else didn't think I was good enough, that I should just be happy with me, and that he thought I was a person worth getting to know, and that I should just take that and worry about what he thought instead of what everyone else thought. And over the years, I went back and visited him and a couple of other my junior high teachers as well. I may have to do another one of these someday to hit some of the other ones, but I went back and visited him. I visited him after I graduated from high school several times just to go talk with him. I also visited him after I came home when I'd come home from college. I'd make it a point to go to the junior high every now and then and visit with him. It never seemed to fail. He was always doing great things, and not in an attempt to release things that maybe he wouldn't have wanted everyone to know, but he did some charity things. I happen to know because I approached him about some things for some people in the Philippines, and he was instrumental in providing funding for a few things that I was doing. He was an amazing man, and he never went around and advertised what he did. He was just one of those people who just did things, and no one ever knew he was doing them. He was an amazing person who influenced and helped so many students over the years, and I was one of those. I was lucky enough to be in his class. Third person I want to talk about is a lady named Susan Murdoch. So Susan Murdoch, I met her in my freshman year of high school. She was a lot more strict than most of my teachers. I was scared to death to get to her class too. And she taught English. I was in her class for Greek mythology. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like Greek mythology and I thought it was stupid. So I was in her class, and she was really strict. She made you rise and be a better person in order to be in her classroom. She did not accept mediocre work. You had to turn in good work. But I learned a lot about her that year. At one point, I was not interested in Greek mythology. I thought it was boring and stupid, and I just had no intention of reading any of that. And I didn't want to do the assignments either. I really hated being told what I had to read, and I hated being told exactly how I had to do things. It just did not mesh well with me. And so I was getting a really bad grade at midterms, and we had trimesters, so there was 12 weeks. So at 6-week mark, I was doing horrible in this class, and I had a D. And I knew parent-teacher conferences were coming up, and my mom was going to not be happy. My parents were going to be really frustrated when they found out I had a D. And so my mom went into parent-teacher conferences, and I sat at home and stressed because I was sure that Mrs. Murdoch couldn't possibly like me, and that she was only going to tell my mom bad things, and it was going to be a really bad day when my mom got home because I had a D, and I didn't even try in her class. I was missing half my assignments. I wasn't reading. I wasn't doing anything, okay? It was horrible. When she got home, she said that she was telling me what each of my teachers had said, and she got to Mrs. Murdoch, and she told me that I had a D. I said, I know. And she goes, but I want you to know that Mrs. Murdoch only said good things about you. I said, what? And she goes, she told me that you were such a delight to have in class, and that she loved having you in there, and that she wished that every student had as good and as positive an attitude as you did, and that everyone was always as excited and optimistic as you were. And I sat there. I said, really? She likes me? And my mom said, yeah, she absolutely loves having you in class. All she did was tell me all these good things you did and why she likes you. I sat there and I thought on that all night. So this affected me in ways that I don't even know if Mrs. Murdoch realized. But this affected me. And I started to turn in assignments. I turned in past assignments too. She allowed me to turn in past ones, and I did. I went back, I made up for all the ones I had not done. I turned them in. I got only partial credit for them, but it was better than a 0, right? And I started doing the assignments from then on. And by the end of that trimester, I had a B+, which looked a lot better than the D I started with. I barely had a D. I had a 60%, and I got it up to an 88% by the time that year was over. And the reason being That teacher convinced me that she liked me, and as a result of that, I became determined to live up to what she expected of me. I wanted to impress her. Oftentimes, when someone knows we like them, that's what happens. They want to make us happy. They want to do good things. This is exactly what happened to me. I wanted to impress her. I took every class she offered. I loved being in her class. I started doing things. I hated doing them. We had things we had to organize, and I hated it. And she always pushed me past my boundaries. She made us do things in front of the class. I was scared to death to speak in front of people, and she pushed it. And I still took classes from her. She was always so encouraging, and I always felt like even if I flopped in front of the whole entire class, that somehow Mrs. Murdoch was still proud of me. And that she still believed in me, and she thought that what I did was fantastic. And this had a huge, huge impact on my life. I changed a lot over those years, and a lot of that was due to her influence and her ability to make me want to change. I became a good student because of her. I finally started getting good grades. My grades did not only go up in her class, that spilled over into every other class I had. I actually started doing my work in other classes as well, and it's because she started me on that path. I still believe to this day, if I had not been as lucky to get through her class, and if she had not told my mom all those wonderful things I did, I am not sure I would have passed high school with a very good grade. Okay, no college would have wanted me with the grades I had been getting from 7th to 9th grade. But because of her, I went on and became a very successful student and a learner, and I've been a lifelong learner as a result. And just because she focused on the good. So focus on the good in people. There's plenty of things to look at that are bad, but be like Mrs. Murdoch and focus on those good things and show people their strengths and give them a reason to want to keep going in life. This next one was my band teacher. So we went through a number of band teachers in my junior high and high school years, and we had one in my freshman year, and then it changed in my sophomore year. And we got a teacher, and her name was Kaylin Pendleton. We called her Mrs. P. So Mrs. P had to put up with a lot from me. Again, I did not have a lot of self-confidence back then. I wasn't even very talented back then. I had to practice a lot. So really, when she got me in the beginning of my sophomore year, I wasn't really that good. I mean, I hadn't been very good before then. I just worked really hard and got kind of good because I had to. There wasn't very many trumpet players at the beginning of football season, and I played in the pep band, and I had to suddenly get good, and I did. I got a lot better, and I started to improve, and I started practicing. See, that whole thing from the last teacher spilled into every area of my life. I didn't practice before, so I finally started practicing. It's amazing what happened to my talent when I did. And as a result of being a trumpet player in band, I had to play a lot of big parts. I had to play solos sometimes. And I was the first trumpet, and it was a challenge sometimes because I had no confidence, and I was scared to death, and I had a massive phobia of doing anything in front of people. I have no idea why I chose a trumpet, knowing that everyone could hear him. I should have chosen a flute or something that just I could have hid if I wanted to. Now I'm not saying anything against flute players. They're fantastic, and usually they try to be heard, but I wouldn't have. I would have actually just sat there and played as quiet as possible, but no, I was playing a trumpet. You can't hide with a trumpet. It's like hiding with the drums, okay? You can't do it. And so over the years, she had to put up with a lot from me. Well, I remember one year I had a song, and it had a huge, huge trumpet part in it, and I was struggling with it. No, I wasn't struggling being able to play it. I had no problem playing the part. I was struggling with the solo part that I was supposed to play in front of everyone. And we had gone into the room many times for her to give me a lecture on why I was not doing things right in the past, and why I had no self-confidence. So this was normal. No one was surprised when one day she told me to get to the office, and she shut the door, and I got a lecture. Not a bad one. It was more like a pep talk lecture. And I remember there was something she said in there, and it made a huge difference in my life, even though you wouldn't have known it that day. Nothing changed that day. I went back out, and I still didn't play my part, and no one heard it, okay? It was horrible. But inside, she said, "You've never let anything else get to you. Why start now?" And that hit me really hard. And the interesting thing about her is even when I was doing really horrible, she always believed in me. I don't know why. I gave her very little reason to ever believe in me in practice. I didn't do things and I messed up all the time because of my lack of confidence and being scared. But because she believed in me and gave me a chance, I came through in performances. And because she allowed me that opportunity and she believed that I really could, she had an impact on my life. She taught me that I could do hard things and that it was okay and not to give up. And performing in front of people was really, really hard for me. And she taught me that I could do them. And she gave me that chance even when I'm sure in the back of her head sometimes she did not know if I was really going to play that solo in the concert or not. Or if I was going to sit there and honestly let that piece go without the solo and have this weird, silent, awkward moment. She had to have wondered. It had to have gone through her head at least once that I may not really play it. And the funny thing is, no one heard it until the day of the concert, so no one actually knew what I was going to play anyway. No one knew whether I actually could play it. And yet she still let me play. She didn't pull the piece and say, that's it, we're not playing it. If the trumpet can't do it, we're not doing it. She just believed in me. And that has had a huge impact on my entire life. I had so many people who believed in me in a time when I didn't. And this gave me the courage to eventually believe in myself. And now it doesn't matter so much whether or not anyone else believes in me because I believe in me. But she was one of the reasons why I finally started believing in me. So, big shout out to her and thanks for being my teacher and being so amazing. And the next one I want to talk about. This lady, she was also my high school teacher. She was also an English teacher. Her name is Norma Harris. Mrs. Harris, I don't even know what to say as an introduction to her. She was interesting, and she also expected great things of people and did not let a lot get past her. Okay, she did not put up with a lot. You either did it or you didn't do it. There was no try. This was the Yoda thing. She really liked Star Wars. The whole do or do not, there is no try. That was her. She liked, all those classical books. She liked, Tolkien's books, everything. So this was her, and she didn't put up with a lot of baloney from anybody. She called you out on it, and she got mad. Okay, she didn't care. You just didn't do it. And so I had her for many classes actually, but one of them was my senior year. And in my senior year, I worked hard and I was getting good grades, and I had a trimester where I thought I was going to get all A's and I was going to have a 4.0. And this is a big thing because I actually hadn't gotten a 4.0 before. I'd always gotten at least one class that didn't quite make it. I struggled with certain classes, and this class I didn't have any math classes. So in my brain, I could now get a 4.0 because there was no math involved. And the problem was I did a lot of things. I was involved in a lot of events and drama and band things, and I was doing a whole bunch of stuff and helping other teachers with things my senior year, and I had my time divided all over the place. And I was doing assignments in her class, and I had kept up pretty good, but honestly, I had missed way more of her class than I should have, and I always managed to get it excused by some other teacher. And I know this frustrated her to no end because she told me it did. And so she didn't mince words either, by the way. And so she'd let me know that she was annoyed at me. Well, at one point, I was getting an A-, a 92%. I was like 92.9 or something. And I realized I wasn't going to quite have enough to get my A. And so she had a thing where you could do one extra credit book report during the trimester, and you could up your grade. It was worth 50 points. Well, I knew that 50 points was going to put me over to an A, and so I read the book, which is amazing because I didn't read very many books that they wanted me to. I read a book, and I did their book report. I did a really good book report, and I turned it in to her. And when I turned it in, she told me she wouldn't accept it. I said, but I read the book. And I didn't always read the book. Sometimes I did book reports without reading them and still got good grades. But I actually read the book. And she told me no. She wouldn't accept it. And I said, well, what do you mean you won't accept it? I did the book. I did the book report. And she goes, Miss Sexer, do you know why we have extra credit book reports? And I said, well, to help us up the grade that we didn't have an A for, or some other grade that someone wants to get. And she goes, no. I said, okay, what do we have extra credit book reports for? And she said, to help people who genuinely need it because they struggle. And she looked me in the eye and she said, you do not need it. This is not to help people who just chose not to do their best in the first place, like you did. She goes, this is to help people who did their best and still came up short. I just stood there and thought, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? You didn't tell me that before I did the book report. So she told me she would not accept my book report because I had not done my best in the first place. And a book report was to compensate for those who had not done their best. And that if I had wanted that A, I should have done my best, and I would have had it without the book report. Now, I had a lot of choices. I didn't actually go home and tell my parents. I was sure that they would just give me a lecture on not doing my best. So I didn't tell anyone. I didn't fight with her. I didn't go to the school and demand that she correct my paper. I didn't do any of that. Instead, I took it and realized that she just taught me a very important lesson. That I shouldn't be mediocre. That I shouldn't just try to get by doing the least amount of work possible. And that if it's not quite enough, then try to make up for it in the end. That is a lesson that has served me well. That is a lesson that when I got to college, I did get 4.0s because I turned in my best work. And they do not give very many extra credit assignments in college. I got them of my own hard work and by actually doing my best on assignments. This is something I've taken into the workplace to do my best. She taught me a skill and a principle that has made all the difference in my life. And I hope every person on this earth gets a Mrs. Harris. Maybe not directly her, but that you get someone like her who teaches you to do your best, to be your best, and to never be mediocre, but to give this world the best you can offer them all the time, 100%. It was one of the best success principles I ever got taught in my entire life. The next teacher I want to talk about is actually my interpersonal communications teacher in college. And now you may find it interesting that I have no name for this teacher, and yet he had such a profound impact on my life. He retired after that year, and I just cannot for the life of me remember his name. And I feel really horrible about this. And so I'm going to talk about him anyway, though. So interpersonal communications was not a required class in college, at least not for my major and minor. And so they had 3 classes that you could choose from, and you had to take one of those 3 classes. And so I looked down the list, and I thought, well, interpersonal communication sounds interesting. So I decided to take it. I had a teacher, and you could just tell he was so enthusiastic about his topic. He taught with enthusiasm. I went to class every day, so excited to be there. And the thing is, again, he put us in very uncomfortable positions. So it was interpersonal communications, and so the second day, he made us turn to our partner and tell them something very personal. And he literally pushed us outside our comfort zones, told us we were going to become very cozy with one another. And I'm not someone who shares things with people. I like to keep everything locked up inside and not tell anyone anything too personal about me. And he had us telling people things that some of my friends didn't know, and I didn't talk about these things. My roommates didn't even know them, and so, but he created an atmosphere that felt safe. And the type of people who tended to take his class, I don't know, they all seemed pretty amazing to me. And so it was like they were attracted and drawn to it. And that's just who he was. And he taught with such enthusiasm. You could tell he had prepared well every day. He walked into class ready to go, excited about what he was teaching, and he always had good information. He always had things of value, which is why I liked his class. I can't say, this is not a slam at any teachers or anybody in college, but I cannot say there were very many classes that I actually felt like truly taught me skills that were worthwhile for my life in general. Now, they may have taught me skills that were necessary for my major or for my minor, but honestly, most of them didn't matter outside of, that topic. But the skills and lessons he taught me have mattered in every area of my life since. They have made all the difference in my life. And it wasn't just, he spent a lot of time researching and finding activities to do that were outside the norm. He was a super fantastic teacher. And because he did that, my life was extremely blessed. And I learned things, and he brought them out in ways that helped me out so much. He didn't just do the bare minimum as a teacher and then move on. He was one of those teachers who should have gotten, awards for being a world-class teacher, because he did things that other teachers did not do, and he was amazing. And so, I still remember so many of the principles he taught us. He had a profound impact on every student who took his class. I remember talking with a group of students later, and just the way he was so kind and so genuine and so loving that you couldn't help but learn something from him. You couldn't help but notice that he cared, and it made you want to become a better person because you were around him. The next person I want to talk about is also from college. His name is Kevin Stenger. Mr. Stenger was one of my education course teachers. Actually, I had a couple of education classes, and I had a couple of them from him. And he was that. And in the very one of the later ones that I had, we had to be put in teams, and then it was a practice for teaching school. And so we went and taught at a junior high some sort of topic once a week, or I think we did it twice a week. And we went there. It was a practicum class, and he was always huge into telling us that we needed to really get to know people and to always call them by their name, to take enough interest in them to find out how they wanted to be called and to call them by that. Now, I really like this because I really like being called Kimberly, and that's always been a challenge to get called. And so I like that he did this because I always got called Kimberly in his class, and that made me really happy. And in some of my other classes, I didn't, but I always got called Kimberly in his class. And I had my partner that I got placed with was a girl, and I don't remember her name either, but we called her something in class, and that's what she told us to call her on the first day. And so that's what we called her. And in the course of working with her, and as I got to know her better, and that was one of his things, he was always stressing, like, we should be getting to know our partners better, like, we should get to know people. And so I was constantly talking to her and trying to learn something new, because when we went to class, he'd ask us, what did you learn new about your partner yesterday? So I knew I needed to know something about her every single time I went to class, because he was going to ask me. This was important that we knew people. He told us that was important for our students. That was important in life. It didn't matter what we did. We should always get to know people and make them and let them know that they're important. And so as I was getting to know her, she was a Hispanic lady, and so the name she gave us was just the name she went by because it was easy for everyone to pronounce. I found out, though, that wasn't the name she preferred, nor was it her real name. It was actually just a nickname. It was not on her birth certificate at all. She didn't even like the name necessarily, other than she liked it, and so that's the name she chose to have people call her, so it'd be so hard. She had a beautiful Spanish name that people slaughtered on a regular basis, and they didn't pronounce it right, and they just acted like it was too hard, and so that's why she finally stopped being called that. And so she told me this, and I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I went in and I talked to my teacher, and I said, you know how you're always saying it's important that we know each other's names? I said, I found out something interesting that I thought maybe you'd like to know. I told him about this conversation I had with her. And he said, oh. He goes, well, I'll fix that tomorrow. So we went to class the next day. He said, so-and-so is in our class, and she's had us call her this name this whole time. And he goes, but I recently found out that she'd actually really like to be called such and such. And he goes, we are going to practice that until every one of you can say that properly, because that's important to her, and we always want to call people by their names. So I have worked on this. I have had students with interesting names. I have had students from Iraq, and I have had students from different countries that are Spanish. I have had Chinese students, and I have tried my hardest to call people what they prefer to be called, not what's convenient for me. And we live in an age where people have some pretty interesting names nowadays, and I have tried my hardest. And if they tell me they want to be called a nickname, I try to do that, because there's nothing sweeter to someone than the sound of their own name, or the sound of the name they wish to be called, whatever that may be, whether you like it or not. That is an important thing. It's something that happens regularly. And he taught me that if you cannot get to know someone enough and to call them how they want to be called, then you haven't spent enough time. Like, you need to become a better person and step it up. And so this is what I've worked on doing, is never having a student think I don't care because I didn't call them, I didn't take enough time to get to know them enough to know how they wish to be called. That has been my goal. I have made it a point of making sure that I know students' names and I call them by them, even the complicated ones. So the last person I want to talk about is a teacher that I had in college as well. She was my Chinese teacher. So I studied Chinese for 3 years in college, and she was my teacher through most of it. I had one other teacher for one class and another teacher for another one, and she taught all the rest of my Chinese classes, including a Chinese history class. And her name is Shen Lei, and that is her Chinese name, and we called her Shen Lao Shi. And she's from China, and she's amazing. So she speaks extremely well in both Chinese and English, and she had all the background to go with it. Well, when I started taking Chinese classes, I thought this was a great idea, and eventually it came to my attention. My university was a private school, and they don't like you to stay in forever because they already have, a little bit cheaper rates anyway, and so they like you to get out so other students can have an opportunity to come. And so I was going to have way too many credits, and then I was going to have to start petitioning every semester to even stay in school if I didn't stop. I'd changed my major and my minor a number of times. And so taking Chinese actually was not approved by the school or my counselor or anything. They were not approving of this when I already had as many credits as I did. So I went in and I talked to her. She was actually the head of things at the time, and I went and talked to her and I said, I would really like to keep taking Chinese classes because this is important for me to learn Chinese. I would like to become fluent. I cannot have it show up on my transcript until I'm all ready to graduate, and then I want to be able to take the last class, and I want to then go back and get credits for all the previous classes before it. So I took the very first class, and then I'm having this conversation with her, and she told me that they didn't really like to do this because people didn't tend to take audited classes seriously. And so she wasn't really sure she wanted to do this. And I had to do some convincing of both her and the other guy that was over things to convince them that I promised I was going to stay up on it, and I was going to work hard, and I was going to learn and progress just the same as any other student who was taking the course. And after much begging and convincing, they finally allowed me to do this. So the interesting thing about this is I did treat it like a normal class, and I don't know why, but Chinese classes always seem to be at 7:45 in the morning or 8 o'clock, depending on whether it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And they were always a 3 or 4 credit class that went 4 or 5 days. They always went more days than the credits, and so I had to wake up like every morning at 7:45. I couldn't put any other class at that time. And so I had to figure out other ways to rearrange my schedule, including taking one online from another university in order to get all my credits in because I was doing this. And it was a lot of work, and I usually carried around 15 to 18 credits, and then I had this 4-credit Chinese class on top of it, which was a lot of work because I did everything. I did the assignments. If we had group activities, I did the group activities with them, and I did my part, and I showed up, and I did everything we were supposed to do. And I really don't think at the beginning they thought I was going to stick with it. But, like 5 Chinese classes later, I took the last one. And I got an A in it. And then I went back and I had an A in the first one. I had an A in the last one. So I got all the credits for all of the classes from there on out. So mind you, I audited all those classes, and then I took that last class for credit after having had done that. And it worked. But the thing that I got out of her is that she believed in me, and she gave me the benefit of the doubt. And the interesting thing is I mostly had her classes. So I was in her class doing all these things. She treated me the same as everybody else. She didn't act like I was somehow not taking her class. She called on me. She made me do all the things too. She had me read. She did all these things. She never once treated me like I was not a real person taking this class for real. And that helped me to be successful. And the fact that she gave me the benefit of the doubt and dared to trust me was something, despite the fact it went against her better judgment and maybe even her gut feeling, that there was no way I was going to be able to handle this. And from that, I learned that sometimes we just have to give people the benefit of the doubt. Not everyone's the same. Someone else may have done something that didn't please us. That doesn't mean everyone will. Someone may disappoint us, but someone else may not. We have to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we should treat people with respect and show, care about them. And that's what she did. She was one of my favorite teachers ever. And I learned so much. And again, she was a very strict teacher. She did not let us speak any English in that classroom. It was hard. And I had no previous experience with Chinese. I didn't, some people had lived there in one of the Chinese speaking countries and were returning and had started off in a higher class. No, I had to work all the way from the very beginning. I didn't have any experience. And she helped me. She helped me so much. She took time, even though I wasn't taking the classes for credit, and she had no reason to believe I would ever get them all done anyway. If I showed up to her office, she helped me the same as she did other students. I emailed her. I came in with questions all the time, and she took the time to help me. So a lot of these things that I've been listing with these teachers are principles that anybody can apply. People can treat people with respect. They can have enthusiasm. You can call people by their name. You can, treat them as they should be and watch them rise. You can believe in them. You can focus on the good they do. You can help them to realize they're a worthwhile person and to have confidence in themselves. And you can have confidence in them till then. These are all things that someone can take and help them become better and help other people around them to become better. And I hope that's what you'll do. That you'll take what I've given you and you'll think of these principles and you'll think of how you can bless the lives of someone else. Thanks for listening, and make it a great day. Remember to subscribe to my channel so you can listen to other great talks. Also, give it a like and a share with other people that you may think may benefit.